Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Since there's no blue cards, we will bypass the community open forum and move into special presentations. And tonight is Mr. Colabufo with the update really on the goals. While he's getting prepped, this is, well, I won't say what you guys see it there, but this really will direct a lot of the work that happens during the summer to set our goals and the district goals for the next school year.
So what you're going to see right here is going to be more focused on special education students that make up the 505 students from grades 1st through 12th grade, with additional 94 students that receive special ed services in pre-K. So in February, I presented the board with a packet, and it had all of my goals, evidence on there, and a lot of the stuff that you saw on there, you're going to see some of that on here regarding the special education students. That's what we're going to be focused on, and the different categories. And those categories that we talked about the last board meeting that I was to have ready would be attendance, it would be, and then separating general ed students from special ed students, it would be graduation rate, again separating special education students from gen ed students, and then it would be academic success. And for that we looked at 3 through 8 testing, but we also looked at Regents exams. And then we were going to come up with some targets. At the next board meeting, what I'm going to have is kind of consolidated on just one visual, and it's going to be able to just clearly show what those goals are going to be for 3 years out. So it's going to be the goals for 1920, 2021, 21, 22 for each of those categories. So as you can see right here, broken down, again, last year is the last of the data, obviously 17-18. And as you can see on here, it breaks down. It's Paul V. Moore up top corner we're looking at right here. And it just, again, shows IEP students. You can kind of see some trends from 15-16 to 17-18. So IEP students back 15-16, their attendance was 84.95%. And then 17-18, it was 87, just over 87%. Non-IEP students, it was almost 91%. And then last year, it was about almost 92%. And then again, pretty much spot on, just as a 0.01% difference. 10th grade, so just in looking at this, you had this sent to you. I can tell you what the goal is going to be, and the goal is going to be to increase. We're looking at this, and we're looking at our chronic absenteeism, and I'll get to that part in a bit. That's what the state looks at under ESSA, and it does align with our goal because we're going to be looking for a 2% increase. That's exactly what the increase that we're going to be looking to make to be in compliance with ESSA anyway.
And Tom, so that's 2% for both groups, general ed and special ed?
Correct, for attendance, yes. And as you can see, general ed students have been in their seats more frequently than special education students. And what Andy had said before I walked up is, so by us making that goal, which is not just going to be a wish and we're just going to just pray that it happens, it's going to become part of the building action plans. So the way that it works is you guys in the past have allowed me to extend my goals getting to you to the last board meeting in August, which gives me a lot of time to work with the admin team over the summer to put it together. And then once we do, all of the building action plans then align and support the district action plan. So then the question is going to be, well, how are we going to do it? So that's what we're going to look at. And I know a lot of school districts, most of them use School Tool, and something is generated after like 10 absences, a letter is created, or we can look at this and say, you know what, we're going to generate that letter after 5 absences. We're going to make a phone call to the parent after a certain amount, and then when it becomes at a number that we're going to agree upon that is kind of like an eyebrow raiser, it's going to be a parent conference to say, what are we both doing to support the child to make sure that their butts are in these seats. So it's not just simply say, hey, it's going to be 2% and then pray that it increases 2%. That's going to be part of the whole planning process. Academic success was the next part, and so in this we broke down 3 through 8 testing. I will say At first, I was a little hesitant because of our colossal number of opt-outs, but it is turning. I know third grade, we were in the 90s for participation in taking that. There is a bubble and it's making its way through, but what we're looking at is more students are, in fact, taking the test than in years past, so then it will actually be able to be an indicator that we can look at, but there are other things that we're looking at as well. In the high school, it's looking at algebra, and it's looking at the math, and it's looking at English. And again, you can see that we definitely have to improve our special ed numbers. So what that basically means right there, when it says, so for instance, algebra at the very bottom, non-IEP students, there were 270, and it shows 90%. The 90% means that is 90% proficient, which is a 3 or a 4. So out of the 270 students that took the algebra that were non-special ed, 90% of them scored a 3 or a 4. And we talked about this in the past. Our special ed numbers were very close to getting us on a watch list. So if you look at 16-17, we had 20 students with an IEP, and only 43% of them were a 3 or a 4 proficient. ELA, again, it was 230 students, 93 were non-special ed students were proficient, that's 3 or 4, and for IEP students we had 24, 52 of them were. 17-18, you can see we had, staying with English, we had 284 non-special ed students take it, and 90% of them were proficient with 3 or 4. We had 21 students that were IEP students take it, and again, it's in the 40s, 48%. So math, not great. Again, there were only 16 students that took the algebra with an IEP, and only 28 of them received a 3 or a 4, as opposed to the 193 students that took it without an IEP, and they had an 81% proficiency. So these are things that we're going to be putting into place, and we're going to have to, it's going to be part of the action plans that are spelled out in each of the buildings. And in the case right here of high school, what are they doing at the high school level to be accommodating the special education students to get those numbers up? And what are we doing for our gen ed students to make sure we're always pushing the dial there as well?
Do you know what happened, or was there a change from 16-17 to 17-18 to account for that drop in algebra? Because we don't see that in English. Is it just the group, or did they change something in the testing itself? Or
I am not sure. I'd have to look into that. This summer when I meet with the admin team, we're going to dig deep into all of this. Arena, did you?
No, I'm trying to think.
No.
It wasn't a year of the test
No.
change, and I do not think we had new staff. I think the staff was stable. Did it include?
No.
It only was high school.
Yeah, it didn't include algebra. What I think too is when you get in the numbers of 16 and 20 kids, it could.
No, 16 and 20 I get, but even in our no IEP, I mean, a 9%, that's a...
There can be so many factors we had to check.
And we will. We're going to have to see.
And when roughly do the 18, 19 numbers come out?
Is that the fall
If we're lucky.
for high school?
Yeah, when they publish the report card.
Okay.
Tom, just so you can clarify, so the graphs at the bottom are a calculation and compilation of the top? So all of these numbers at the bottom are just total numbers of what's reflected in the top?
No, so at the top, I was going to come at the top is the 3 through 8 testing.
Okay, so the bottom's not the 3 through 8.
No, so the bottom is the high school Regents exams.
Okay,
At the top are, it's very similar to what I had sent you guys
Yeah.
earlier. It broke it down, but it's just visually, it's easier to look at that. And that is, IEP students are in the green, and then the non-IEP students are over in the blue. And so, IEP level 1, ELA grade 3, 2016-17 is showing there were 21 students that got a level 1. There were 13 IEP students that year that got, for ELA, there were 13 of them that got level 2. There was only 1 that got a level 3, and none of them got level 4. Then as you break it across in blue is the gen ed.
Is it, I thought it was separated by years.
It is.
But
So-
it looks like olive green is 2016, 17?
It is,
Okay.
it is. So,
Okay. I'm just confused because you said IEP was one color and non-IEP is another.
No, it's, everything in green is that
Is
year.
that year? That's right, okay, I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure, I thought you just said that,
It's
oh
just-
yeah, no,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I just want to
yeah.
make sure I'm understanding.
My brain and my mouth aren't working
That's
together.
fine.
No, you are.
I
you are.
understand the chart, okay.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
separated by years. I'm sorry about that.
No problem.
So I've got a couple questions. So obviously the state follows these numbers, right? Right, so this is how the state measures it. So I don't know with that low of participation or numbers wise, is it something that can be relied upon as a whole for the district? Meaning that if you're really concentrating on, is it a good data source for you and for the administration? What I'm going to try and frame it as is if you have your own data set that's going to be important to you, then I'd be really positive to have you explore that so that you know. So, if you go in and say, listen, and on an evaluation score, how many, you have 21 kids, how many kids are at this level, how many kids are at this level, and you can use that data point because then it's really more encompassing. Obviously, you have to pay attention to this because that's what they're required, but if it's not a good data set for you, then I wouldn't be just tied right to that.
And that's really what we look at. We're more tied to the REITs exams because they're not optional. The 3-2 testing is just one indicator. We can't totally dismiss it, but we also understand until we can get participation, if what they're asking at 95%, you're right. I mean, what is it really telling us
Right.
because of the opt-outs?
Yeah,
So we use a number of other factors as well.
Yeah, so having, the summer, maybe having like a clear distinction of these, here's the measuring factors that we're going to take a look at, right, with the new software. And these are the key indicators that are going to give us the things that we're going to look at. Then we can drive our decision making from those particular data points, right? And things that you can develop and discover and then come back. So
It is. Unfortunately, we could do that and we could say, wow, we're doing amazing. And then when people click on our district report card at the very bottom, they'll say targeted district, still based on that. But the
Right.
decisions that we make as a district, I'll be completely honest, because the opt-out numbers are still so high,
Right.
we can't really use that to be able to then drive, what we're going to be doing programmatically. But yeah, exactly right.
Well, and the thing that you have to be cautionary about is are you chasing a bad number, a bad data set? So, and if you're not finding out really what the root cause of what the lower scores or the progression isn't meeting your goals, is that truly the root cause of what's driving this whole thing? So, like I said, I'm not saying it's not important, but when you have that low numbers and everybody's kind of looking and scratching your head, that indicates, in my experience, that we're really not looking at the right thing. In that, you folks can come up with really what's important.
Well, and we have, so for the past couple of years, what I honestly put more credence in than those 3-8 testing is when you look at CKLA, you look at our elementaries, and we have common benchmarks among the buildings, then we can say, wow, that building over there in 4th grade, scored at a 98 percentile. What are they doing so well that another building, that 4th grade, we're at a 50%.
Right.
So even though that's a number, it's not driving what overall we're doing. Okay. Academic success, special education students, continued. Taking a look at this, this is just a summary of what you saw on the other page. And again, I sent this to you. Here we now go into the third category, and that's graduation rate. So what you're going to see as our goal, so taking a look at 2014, as you see the note right there, that's not the year they graduated, that's their cohort. So you add 4 years onto it. We're going by the 4-year cohort. There were some school districts that said they were going by a 4-year cohort, but really they were giving the state what the kids graduated in 5 years. That's not legal. So 2014 cohort, those are the kids that graduated last year. Now, when it says 90%, the top one is for our gen ed students, and the bottom level is for our special education students. So if you were to go right now and you were to go type in Google search for school district report card Central Square, it would pull up 2018 and it would show 87% graduation rate, which is true, because that combines the 90% and the 65%. So 90% of our general ed students, out of our gen ed students, 90% of them graduated. 65% 2018 for special ed. So what we're going to do, you're going to see at the next board meeting, we're not just going to say overall, we're going to say there's going to be a 2% increase in graduation. We're going to separate and say, okay, for general ed, it's at 90%. I'd like that to be at 91%, which getting that to jump 1% with a much larger population is harder to do. So it's likely to be 91%. And then for special ed, the 65%, I can tell you this is going to be more than a 1% increase. But I'm still talking with Connie about that, what that could look like. Bring Michelle, obviously, into the conversation, continued conversation on what is an appropriate number for that goal to be.
Yeah, because to your point, Tom, like with special ed, for argument's sake, if there are 17 in the graduating class, whatever the difference of one student equals a percentage, so you're either going to hit the target or you're going to miss it probably massively.
Yep.
We just need to remind ourselves of that at the time.
Correct. Correct. So again, we're going to be building off this for the next one, but as you can see, when we were talking about chronic absenteeism, go down a little bit. Students with disabilities are at a 43.5% chronic absenteeism rate. In the next year, this should be reduced to 41.1%, so it's almost a 2% like what I'm talking about, which is the state target. And Arena, chronic absenteeism is 10% of
their enrollment.
10% of their enrollment is chronic absenteeism. It's fine for us, like I said 8 minutes ago, it's fine for us to pick the goals, but the biggest thing is going to be how are we going to be able to consistently achieve those goals. And that means we have to look at our overall system. So parents should be getting called and letters much sooner than, it's not that like right now we're just sitting back on our heels. We decided on a number, and now looking at this, if for us to be able to make that improvement, we now have to look at that number and then reduce it and say, okay, it's not going to be 10 absence, it's going to be 5 absence, and then what's going to happen in step 2, what's going to happen in step 3, to really, you got to make the parents accountable to this as well.
And that measurement, I don't know who this is directed to, but that measurement, I'm just making sure I understand it. Is that just so like feet on the floor? So if there are 100 kids and 10 of them aren't there, doesn't matter the reason, it could be an excused, unexcused absence, whatever, it's just pure attendance, or is it based on excused or non-excused?
It's, well, an absence is an absence.
Pure.
They don't get, we don't get day or penalized if they're on a field trip or they're on an internship. They're in attendance. They're just not here. We also don't get hit if they're suspended or homebound and receive tutoring. They're still receiving educational service, so they're not considered absent. But if they're not here in school, whether it's excused or unexcused, they are absent. So 10% enrollment means if they enroll today and they're absent today, that's 10%. If they've been enrolled for 10 days and they miss 1, that's 10%. They're for 100 days, 10 days they miss. So it's whatever they're enrolled for.
And does it, it's a little bit in the minutia, I'm just trying to get it in my head. So does it factor at all partial days missed, or is it purely if you miss an entire day?
It does not factor in. It's when you miss attendance in the morning, you're absent. It doesn't go back.
Oh, so if you show up to second period, okay.
I don't believe, you know what?
I don't think that it does. I don't think that, but we'll check.
Yeah, I gotta check that.
I mean, but
I would
It's
think that's
consistent.
because the system doesn't go back and make you not absent.
Well, it does.
Well, it does.
It does. The attendance person checks you back in, so I think they do correct it in the moment, but
But what gets reported though, I always thought that if you weren't there at the beginning for this reporting, it counted as a whole day. So it doesn't get in the minutia, when did the kid come in? Did the kid come in third block? Did the kid come in second block? What makes a full day? What doesn't? Some days are longer. I believe that that's what the state, but we'll check on that.
So if you have a kid and your kid has an appointment in the afternoon, they're there for attendance.
They're there.
They're there. But they could miss
Half the
half the
day.
day.
Correct. Well, again, this is also the state that when I have to have a 2-hour delay or a half day at school, it still counts as a full day. So again, at the next meeting, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna break that down, put it on the screen, and basically have those 3 categories in one visual and say, here's the attendance, academic success, and graduation rate. There it is. And you'll get this well before the next board meeting that you can look at. Ask many questions before the next board meeting. Which I believe the next board meeting is the last board meeting before the reorg, correct? Okay.
God willing, when the creek don't rise, yes. We're moving.
So, question about the attendance. Is there a reason why we're just including 9 through 12, but then we're still including assessments of grades 3 through 8? Just it wasn't part of this presentation.
Hold on one second. So in what I gave you earlier, when I submitted my goals, it had all elementary as well, because I'm looking at it.
Did I miss something? Just why are we seeing it again? Was there questions that were raised?
No, what he gave us, what he's talking about that he gave us was his data to support the annual review that we do for the superintendent.
Right.
He pulled sections out of it to back up these
Specifically for
goals.
goal 3?
Yeah.
So what I gave you guys earlier on, it says goal 3. And then when it gets down, if you want to take a look back at that, it says attendance in all 4 elementary schools,
Okay.
grades 1 through 5, and I had a summary.
So
So
I remember seeing it. I was just curious why it's revised for.
on this one, I think it was just because I stuck mostly to Paul V. Moore on that one. But, and special ed, but if you look at this right here, I did break down on here special ed and non-special ed attendance at the elementary level.
Okay.
So, and I think the whole overall goal was when this is put into the dashboard, it's just going to be able to draw all of that up, and you'll have all of that in front of
And
you.
you're going to have like live attendance rates, aren't we? Pretty much?
Absolutely, that's the dashboard, correct.
Okay.
Yep, and to give you a quick update on the dashboard, I can tell you what they just told us. So they just uploaded all of activities. We talked about sports and music, and that should be up there within the next 2 weeks. That will be in there as well. Right now, we've got student attendance, student discipline, teacher attendance. I have to check what the latest they have up there, but all the things that we wanted within the next 2 weeks, they should all be on there as well.
So Phil, to your point, and Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, but at the next meeting, really what will probably be presented and have at that point is a chart. There will be 18 goals or targets listed on it, 3 years, broken out by gen ed and special ed, and
Elementary, middle,
3 different
Yeah.
categories and targets for all of those. And then for the next 3 years, we're measuring actual results against those targets or goals.
So on the next one, Phil, it's not going to say 3rd graders, 4th grade. It's going to say elementary. Elementary attendance, what it was, what the goal is for the next 3 years. Middle school, and then high school.
Other questions? Thank you, Mr. Fogelfeld. All right, we'll open it up for board member reports. Let's start with our student board rep, who I know has something tonight.
You all have papers on your seats about the blood drive. You can sign up for it after this board meeting real quick if you want. I have the sign-up paper. It's at the American Legion. We're just helping them out. We didn't plan it. I know a lot of you are double red, so it'd be great if you donated. Yeah, so if you guys want to sign up, I have the sheet right here. I have all the dates, or all the times, and there's a lot of open spots, so. Yeah.
Thank you. Anything else? All
But you
right.
have to weigh 120 pounds though, right?
I barely meet that. And this is your last meeting?
Oh, yeah, this is also my last meeting.
Yeah, this is her last official meeting. She will be at graduation though, so, which is good. But thanks for everything. You know, you brought up some great topics this year for us.
And since we're spotlighting you, seeing you on the unified basketball team was awesome. You were great. Great teammate, thank you.
I had a lot of fun. That was so fun.
That's great.
Oh, thanks for sitting next to me.
Open it up to the rest of the board. Any topics or things to bring up? All right, three quick things. Number one, there's a ton of year-end activities, as you all know, coming up. So I asked Pearl, she graciously accepted that she'll send out on Friday for the next couple of weeks all the things that are happening the coming week after that, just so that we have them all on the calendar. It's not to put any pressure on you, it's just there's so many things. I think it'll help us pick and choose where we're able to represent the board and not. One of those events will be on June 24th. The New York State School Board Association is doing these round robins like they did last year. So I think all of you got an invitation, but if not, June 24th, it's at the Ice House in Mexico. And I think you can RSVP directly, but as usual, I think it's better if we go through Pearl, that way we know one number who's going, so you can just let Pearl know. And the last thing I just want to mention is kudos to all the staff, but especially to Maureen and Pearl, because they're the most heavily invested in our annual election and budget vote and all of that. I heard so many great positive feedback. Doesn't mean it was flawless, but the things I heard of that weren't flawless were not things of our doing. And I did hear many more positive comments than previous years. So at a time when you reduce from 5 to 2 locations, you could expect a lot more pushback on the changes, and I didn't hear many, so whether that's good or bad that I'm not hearing it, I don't know, but I didn't, so just wanted to say kudos to you, Pearl, and to Maureen, who's at a conference and not here tonight, but good job.
Connie's very sick.
Yeah. All right, with that, we will move into the superintendent's report.
All right. The boys and girls track won league titles. Girls won sectional titles. Boys finished third. Softball won their first sectional game and then lost to a very good JD team who then went on to win it all. Unified basketball finished third out of 15 teams. Quinn Ames qualified for states for the pole vault. I believe it was 14 feet. Did you guys? It's pretty impressive. And that's this weekend. Thank you.
Wow. I didn't know you were really better at this. Thank you, Mr. Colabufo. With that, we'll move into our items for discussion and action. So I'm going to make the motion for item F1 because there's a slight change that everyone should be aware of. Item F1 is the approval of the pyramid brokerage renewal. We had said before we were doing 30-day increments. We had a couple things. Number one, there was a slight lapse because of our meeting schedule. The reality is what we'd be doing tonight is renewing it from May 25th to June 25th. Our next meeting is 2 weeks from tonight. We just have to do it again. So my suggestion is that we approve tonight to go through July 1st. On July 1st, the new board is sitting, and then the new board can determine what to do after that. But that way we don't have to do this again in 2 weeks. So
Is that the motion?
yeah, so the motion
I'll
is to
second.
accept item F1 with the date of July 1st.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. McCarthy. Oh, any discussion on that? All right, all those in favor? Thank you, passes. Taking a motion for item F2, authorization of the bus bond resolution.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. McCarthy, second by Mr. Loyer. Any discussion before we do a roll call vote on this? The next two have to be roll call votes. So. Any discussion? All right, I will go from right to left. Mr. Loyer? Yes. Ms. Fishman?
Yes.
Mr. Medworth?
Yes.
Mrs. Nickerson?
Yes.
Mr. Martin is a yes. Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Buddy?
Yes.
Mr. Patch?
Yes.
Thank you, the motion carries. And I will make a motion to accept item F3, authorization of the Safety and Security Capital Project Bond Resolution. Can I get a
I'll
second?
second.
Who was that? I heard multiple voices.
It was Tim or I, so you
I'm going to
pick.
go with Bedworth just because it's your next to last meeting. So, second by Mr. Bedworth. Any discussion before the roll call vote? All right, Mr. Loyer.
Yes.
Mrs. Fishman.
Yes.
Mr. Bedworth.
Yes.
Mrs. Nickerson.
Yes.
Mr. Martin is a yes. Mr. McCarthy.
Yes.
Mr. Buddy. Yes. And Mr. Patch.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. And can I get a motion to accept item G in its entirety, the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Bedworth, second by Mr. McCarthy. Any discussion on G? All those in favor? It's unanimous, thank you. Can I get a motion for item H1, instructional personnel?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Mr. McCarthy with the motion, Mr. Bedworth with the second. Any discussion on H1? All those in favor? Thank you. I'll make a motion for item H2, non-instructional substitute personnel. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Mr. McCarthy with a deliberate pause. That was good.
Wait.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. And can I get a motion for item H3, non-instructional personnel?
Make the motion.
Mr. McCarthy, second by Mr. Loyer. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you, it's unanimous. And with that, I will make a motion that the Central Square School District Board of Education hereby moves into executive session to discuss the employment history of a particular person, and the details on that is it's our superintendent. We will be doing our group discussion to deliver his year-end appraisal at the next meeting, so that qualifies for that. And then as well, it's the Board of Ed, our self-evaluation, a lot of which revolves around personnel that we wouldn't be discussing in public session. So we'll be discussing those two things in executive session with no action to follow. Second. Mr. Wood, any discussion? Oh, sorry. We will be inviting Mrs. Horn in for the first part to help us keep track of our board self-evaluation goals or any items that come out of that. And then, should we ask leave, it will just be the board in the second half. So, being no discussion, all those in favor? Thank you. Have a good night.